A young mother's life devolved into an unending cascade of criticism and complaints. Her mother-in-law had moved in, dictating every hour of the day. Quote, zero. All the while, she offered no assistance, content to recline on the sofa. But even patience has its limits. One day, the moment arrived for the daughter-in-law to take decisive action. Hello, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. I'm here to share a captivating new story with you. Enjoy. The mother-in-law's arrival was unannounced. She simply rang the doorbell at 7 in the morning, 2 suitcases in hand, declaring it her sacred duty to help the young couple. Zlata opened the door, a sleepy 4-month-old Misha in her arms, utterly unaware that her life had just taken a nightmarish turn. Olga Makarovna entered the apartment like a conquering tank, confident and noisy. She kicked off her shoes right on the threshold and headed straight for the kitchen. "Will you offer me tea, or have you completely forgotten all civility?" Zlata wordlessly put the kettle on. Misha began to fuss. It was time for his feeding. She retreated to the living room, settled into an armchair, and began to nurse. Olga Makarovna followed, cup in hand, plopped onto the sofa, and immediately launched into it. "You're holding the baby incorrectly. His head needs to be higher. He'll choke like that." Zlata gritted her teeth. Misha nursed with little snuffles. Everything seemed fine, but her mother-in-law was just getting warmed up. "And you're overfeeding him. See how chubby he is? That's unhealthy fat. You need to feed him on a schedule every 3 hours, not at the first whimper." "The pediatrician said to feed him on demand," Zlata replied softly. "Pediatricians," Olga Makarovna scoffed. "They're young. They don't understand anything. I raised 3 children and they're all healthy." "One of them is your precious Oleg, who at 30 still dries his socks on the radiator," Zlata thought. But she remained silent. Her husband arrived home from work that evening, and the mother-in-law immediately shifted her focus to him. "Oleg, my son, you've lost so much weight. She's not feeding you at all. I'll make you some cutlets, real homemade ones." Oleg offered his wife a sheepish smile and shrugged. Olga Makarovna was already clanging pots and pans in the kitchen. By 10 that night, the apartment was thick with the smell of fried onions. A mountain of dirty dishes loomed in the sink, and the mother-in-law, pleased with herself, sprawled on the sofa with the remote. "Aren't you going to bed?" Zlata asked cautiously. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" Olga Makarovna surveyed her, a dismissive look in her eyes. "On the floor, perhaps? We thought you'd be staying in a hotel." "A hotel?" The mother-in-law threw her hands up. "Oleg, are you hearing this? Your wife is kicking her own mother out to a hotel." Oleg faltered. "Zlata, but she's not staying long. Let's give her the sofa." Not long stretched into a week, then 2. Olga Makarovna established herself in the living room like a ruler in an occupied territory. She didn't prepare breakfast. That, she declared, was the hostess's responsibility. She didn't wash the dishes. She had heart problems, pressure, and was of a certain age. But she dispensed advice around the clock. "You're swaddling him wrong, bathing him wrong, holding the bottle wrong, doing laundry wrong, choosing diapers wrong. You buy those expensive ones, and for what? My children grew up without them." Zlata woke at 6 in the morning to Misha's cries. She fed him, changed his diaper, and put him back to sleep. By 7, she'd crawl into the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Oleg couldn't leave for work without a hot meal. By 8, her husband had departed, and the mother-in-law would finally emerge, demanding coffee. "Make some proper coffee brewed, not that instant swill," she'd say, settling at the table, "and an omelet with tomato for me." Zlata cooked, served, and cleaned up. The mother-in-law would migrate to the sofa and turn on the television. Until lunch, she'd recline, scrolling through her phone and commenting on the shows. For lunch, she demanded soup. Real chicken soup, not that instant noodle stuff you're feeding my son. Zlata would make the soup, then wash the floors. The mother-in-law would remark on the dust on the floor and how it was harmful to the baby. Then she'd do the laundry, hang it out, and iron. Misha napped in fits and starts, waking every half hour. Zlata would carry him, rock him, sing lullabies. Olga Makarovna, from the sofa, would opine, "You're spoiling him, raising him incorrectly. You should put him in his crib and not go to him. Let him cry, it'll strengthen his lungs." "I can't listen to him cry," Zlata would say quietly. "That's precisely why you'll raise a mama's boy just like Oleg." "Yes." "Thanks for the confirmation," Zlata thought, rocking her son. In the evenings, Oleg would come home exhausted, eat dinner, and get lost in his phone. The mother-in-law would pepper him with questions about work, salary, and plans. Zlata would sit in the bedroom, listening to Olga Makarovna pontificate about how wives in their time were more obedient and kept the house in order. One evening, Zlata reached her breaking point. "Oleg, your mother has been here for 3 weeks. When is she leaving?" "Zlata, but she's helping." "How is she helping? She lies on the sofa all day." "She's giving you advice, passing on her experience." "I don't need her advice. I need my apartment back." Oleg frowned. "She's my mother. Don't be rude to her." "I'm not being rude. I just want her to leave." "She won't leave until I say so." Zlata fell silent. Oleg returned to his phone. The conversation was over. The next morning, the mother-in-law was in an especially cheerful mood. "You know, Zlatochka, I was thinking, perhaps I should move in with you permanently. It's lonely in my apartment alone, and here, the grandson is growing up, and my help is needed." Zlata felt a pang of despair. "We haven't discussed this." "What is there to discuss? Oleg isn't against it. Right, son?" Oleg, caught off guard, muttered something inarticulate and fled to work. Zlata remained in the kitchen, feeling the walls of the apartment closing in. By the middle of the 4th week, she had stopped sleeping. Misha would wake at night, and during the day, her mother-in-law demanded attention. In the evenings, she had to feign gratitude. Zlata moved like a robot, cooking, cleaning, ironing, feeding. Olga Makarovna, from the sofa, would command, "You're cutting the bread wrong, folding the laundry wrong, talking to the baby wrong. You're coddling him too much. Actually, you're living your life wrong, Zlatochka. But don't worry, I'll teach you." One morning, Zlata stood at the stove, stirring porridge for her mother-in-law. Misha was asleep in his stroller on the balcony. Olga Makarovna reclined lazily on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. "You're cooking the porridge wrong," she said without looking up. "It's too thin. I like it thicker." Zlata remained silent, stirring. Something inside her clicked softly like a switch. "And anyway, Zlatochka, I was thinking," her mother-in-law continued, "perhaps it's time for you to go back to work. You're home on maternity leave. You've gotten too relaxed. Oleg is the only one earning money, and I'll look after Mashenka. He's 4 months old." "He's 4 months old," Zlata replied in a level voice. "So what? My children were in the nursery at 3 months and they turned out fine. Right, Oleg?" Oleg silently chewed his sandwich, gazing out the window. "I'll think about it," Zlata said, and poured the porridge into a bowl. The mother-in-law ate, leaving her plate on the table, and returned to the sofa. Zlata cleared the dishes, wiped the table, and swept the floor. Olga Makarovna turned on a TV series at full volume. "You're holding the mop wrong," she said, not tearing her eyes from the screen. "You'll ruin your back." Zlata placed the mop in the corner and went out onto the balcony. Misha was sleeping soundly. She looked at him, tiny and defenseless, her only ally in this house, and realized that if she didn't change something, she would go mad. In the evening, when Oleg came home from work, she tried again. "Oleg, we need to talk." "Zlata, I'm tired." "It's important. Your mother, she's been here for a month now. I'm struggling." "Struggling?" He frowned. "She's helping you." "She's not helping. She lies on the sofa and commands me." "Don't raise your voice. Mother will hear." "Let her hear. Let her know that I can't go on like this anymore." Oleg stood up and grabbed his jacket. I'm going for a walk. We'll talk when you calm down." He left. Zlata remained standing in the middle of the room, feeling something cold and hard ignite within her. The next day, the mother-in-law awoke in a particularly foul mood. "You brewed my tea wrong. It's too strong. My heart races from it. Do you want to kill me?" Zlata silently poured out the tea and brewed a new one. "And you put his diaper on wrong. See, it's crooked. It'll chafe him." Zlata removed the diaper and put on a new one. "You're treating him completely wrong. If I were you, what would you do if you were me?" Zlata turned to her mother-in-law. Her voice was quiet but held a sharp edge. "Well, I'd take better care of my husband, my family, and the order in the house, but you only think about yourself." "About myself?" Zlata chuckled. "I get up at 6 in the morning, go to bed at midnight, and all day in between I'm spinning like a hamster on a wheel. That's taking care of myself. Don't raise your voice to me. I'm older than you. Then behave according to your age. Help out. Don't lie on the sofa." The mother-in-law jumped up, indignant. You, how dare you, Oleg? Oleg, do you hear how she's talking to me?" But Oleg wasn't there. He had already left for work. Olga Makarovna slumped back onto the sofa with a thud. "Just you wait, my dear. You'll regret this. I'll tell Oleg everything, and he'll decide who's in charge here." Zlata said nothing. She picked up Misha and went to the bedroom. That evening, her husband returned, grim-faced. The mother-in-law descended on him with complaints about how Zlata had insulted her, been rude, and shown disrespect. Oleg listened, sighed, and knocked on the bedroom door. "Zlata, apologize to Mom." "For what? For being rude to her? I didn't say anything like that." "Zlata, she's in tears. You upset her." "And who will upset me? Who cares that I'm at my limit?" Oleg rubbed his face with his hands. "What do you want from me? To kick my own mother out? I want you to take my side for once, just once." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're selfish," he said quietly, and left. Zlata didn't sleep that night. She lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about how everything had gone downhill after Misha was born, how Oleg had become a stranger, how she herself had dissolved into this house, becoming a servant to her mother-in-law and a shadow to her husband. The next morning, she rose with a clear head. The plan had formed itself. Zlata waited until Oleg left for work, fed Misha, and put him to sleep. Her mother-in-law, as usual, was lounging on the sofa, engrossed in her phone. "Olga Makarovna," Zlata called. "Could you please go get some bread? We've run out." "Go yourself," the mother-in-law grumbled. "I'm with the baby. It's inconvenient for me." "Is it convenient for me, do you think? My legs hurt." "The store is next door, 5 minutes." Olga Makarovna snorted irritably, but stood up, pulled on her coat, and slipped her feet into her slippers. "Just be quick," Zlata added, "or Misha will wake up. And I'll have to feed him." The mother-in-law slammed the door. Zlata waited 10 seconds, then darted to the window. Olga Makarovna was shuffling along the path to the store. Zlata sprang into action, pulled her mother-in-law's 2 suitcases from the closet, tossed them into the hallway, grabbed her phone, and searched online for a locksmith service. The operator answered on the 3rd ring. "I need to change a lock urgently, very urgently, within an hour. I'll pay extra." "Address?" Zlata dictated. The locksmith promised to arrive in 20 minutes. Zlata scrambled around the apartment, packing her mother-in-law's belongings: a robe, slippers, a cosmetic bag, medications. Everything flew into the suitcases. Her heart pounded, her hands trembled. Misha woke up and started crying. She scooped him into her arms, holding him tight. "Be patient, little one, just a little longer." The doorbell rang. It was the locksmith, a man in his 50s with a worn tool case. "Change in the lock?" "Yes, quickly, please." "Why the rush?" "I'm kicking out my mother-in-law," Zlata blurted out. The locksmith whistled and smirked. "Got it. Happens. I'll do it in 15 minutes." He got to work. Zlata stood by the window, holding Misha and watching for her mother-in-law. She was standing in line at the store, visible through the window. The locksmith worked with concentration, muttering curses under his breath. He pried out the old lock, installed a new one, and tested it. Done. 4 keys. Zlata paid him, almost shoving him out the door, placed the suitcases in the hallway, and locked the door with the new lock, leaning against the frame to catch her breath. It was finished. She returned to the window. Her mother-in-law was walking back with a loaf of bread, muttering disgruntledly to herself. About 3 minutes passed. Then the doorbell rang, followed by knocking, then a thud. Open up immediately. Zlata walked to the door, leaned her forehead against it, and smiled. You're holding the baby wrong, feeding him wrong, living your life wrong, she said loudly, clearly. Olga Makarovna's voice came from the other side, irate. And I've learned how to change locks correctly. You're holding the baby wrong, feeding him wrong, living your life wrong. Silence. Then a hysterical shriek. What have you done? Open this instant. Your things are in the hallway. Goodbye, Olga Makarovna. I'm calling Oleg. He'll sort you out. Call him. Zlata stepped away from the door, sat on the sofa, the very one her mother-in-law had occupied for a month. Misha lay in her arms, looking up with wide eyes. She kissed the top of his head. The mother-in-law raged in the hallway for another 10 minutes, then fell silent. She was likely calling Oleg. Zlata's phone rang 5 minutes later. What are you doing? Oleg yelled. Open the door for your mother immediately. No? What do you mean, no? That's how it is. I changed the locks. Your mother doesn't live here anymore. You've lost your mind. I'm coming over right now. And what? You'll break it down. Call the police. Oleg, this is my apartment too. I'm registered here. I have the right to decide who lives here. She's my mother, and I'm your wife. But that doesn't seem to concern you. Zlata, I'm telling you one last time, and I'm telling you one last time. It's either this, or I'm leaving with our son and filing for divorce. You choose. She hung up. Her hands trembled. Inside, a hurricane of fear, anger, and wild exhilaration raged. The phone remained silent for an hour. Then a message arrived from Oleg. We'll talk tonight. Zlata exhaled. She put Misha to bed, sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. The silence in the apartment rang like crystal. Oleg arrived late that evening. His face was grim, his movements sharp. Zlata sat in an armchair with Misha in her arms. We need to talk, he said. Yes, why did you do that? Because otherwise I would have gone mad. She's my mother, Zlata, my own mother. And what am I? He clenched his jaw. You could have talked to her like a human being. I tried, you didn't listen, because you're exaggerating everything. She just wanted to help. Oleg. Zlata stood up and walked over to him. Listen to me for once. Your mother lay on the sofa for a whole month and ordered me around. She did nothing around the house. She only criticized. I got up at 6 a.m. and fell into bed at midnight, exhausted. And you didn't even notice. I work, and I work. I'm a mother, a wife, your damned housekeeper. And your mother still wanted to move in permanently. He remained silent. If you want her to live here, Zlata continued, then live with her yourself, without me and Misha. He looked at her for a long time, then lowered his gaze. Fine. She won't live here, not at all. Zlata exhaled. But you'll apologize to her, he added. No, Zlata, no, Oleg, I will not apologize for defending my family. He started to say something but remained silent, turned, and went into the bedroom. Olga Makarovna left for her own place that same evening. Oleg drove her there by taxi, silently loading her suitcases. He returned late, lay on the edge of the bed, and turned away. For several days, a tense silence hung over the apartment. Oleg remained silent. Zlata didn't push for conversations. They existed in parallel. He went to work and she looked after Misha, but gradually the tension eased. Zlata could breathe freely again. The apartment was her fortress, not a battlefield. She cooked when she wanted to, rested when needed. No one commented on her every move. Oleg thawed out a week later, initiating conversations about everyday matters. Then he picked up Misha, rocked him for a long time, and gazed out the window. "Mom is offended," he said one evening. "I know. She says you humiliated her. And what do you think?" He was silent for a moment. "I think I should have intervened earlier." Zlata looked at him. For the first time in a month, she truly looked at him. "Thank you." Her mother-in-law remained offended for another 3 months, not calling or writing. Oleg visited her himself. Then she thawed, sent Misha a gift for his half-birthday, then called and coldly inquired about her grandson's health. 6 months later, she visited for the day by invitation, sat at the table, ate a pie baked by Zlata, and said, "It turned out quite well, although the dough could have been rolled thinner." Zlata smiled. "Thank you for the advice, Olga Makarovna." The mother-in-law wiped her mouth with a napkin and stood up. "Well, I must be going. Next time I'll come when you invite me." She left, and Zlata understood. The boundary had been set permanently. The anniversary of that day fell on a rainy November evening. Zlata stood by the window with a cup of coffee. Misha crawled on the floor, chasing a ball and squealing with delight. Oleg was reading on the sofa. Her phone vibrated. A message from a friend. "How are things?" Zlata typed a reply. "Everything is good. Finally learned to live properly." Misha grew tired and reached for her with his hands. She picked him up and he buried his face in her neck, snuffling and smelling of milk. Outside, it was growing dark. The light was on in the apartment. Oleg put down his book and looked at them. "Want some tea?" he asked. "Yes." He stood up and went to the kitchen. Zlata held Misha tighter. An ordinary evening, quiet. Their own. Sometimes living correctly simply means changing the locks at the right time.